Morning. Yes, Keon, it is a SNES JRPG. One of the greatest JRPGs of all time, regardless of console. Not that I would. Not that I'm going into the direct tomorrow with any kind of expectation. Uh, but it would be nice if there was some Chrono Trigger. I'm assuming Chrono Trigger's like something in some sort of Square Enix collection or something. Never played Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. I've never played any of the Pokemon spin-off games. Unless you consider Pokemon Stadium a spin-off, which I don't. The DS port, yeah. Falco, where are you right now? At home? Okay. At home right now? For now? You know, I never, we didn't have the, like, sitcom situation where it's like, oh my gosh, my water broke. Oh, we gotta like speed to the hospital, crash in through the front door. We're having a baby. No. It was a very nonchalant. We went to IHOP that morning and then just casually went to the hospital. Checked in. Baby's first meal was IHOP? I don't know. Could have been. That's nice. I had it mapped out in my head. It's like, if we're having a situation where we need to, like, bust it to the hospital, but... Nah, that never happened. Not that I'm complaining. You like the hash browns at IHOP? I don't think I've had there. I probably have. I'm not really a hash brown person. Speaking of IHOP, PJ loves IHOP. He's a big fan of pancakes. And it's real easy to just like tear off little pieces of pancake for him to munch on. Pancake baby. Still working up until you go. Yeah, I know a lot of people that do that. Yeah. Yeah, he'll definitely go to the Sandusky pancake place. For sure. They give you the butter in like those little like ketchup cup things that you used at McDonald's. There's a Bob Evans in Sandusky. Really? I didn't know that. Not that I would care, but I mean, I didn't realize that. Bob Evans isn't a national chain? I thought it was just as common in like interstates as Cracker Barrel. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Popcast. Whenever you're listening to this, whether it be live or VOD, Twitch or YouTube, or Spotify, while you are trying to predict the games being announced in the Direct tomorrow, losing your Week 1 match after complaining about your div all week long, dying to a splat bomb with the Rainmaker in your hands in Game 9 in overtime with the opponent wiped out at their own pedestal. Whatever it is that you're doing right now, appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to this. Unless I don't. A special shout out to baby Falco Flyer Jr., who's going to be born into this world any day now. Obviously, Falco, a friend of the show, has been on the show multiple times, has been a guest host of this very show while I was on paternity leave. Now gets to experience that. It's exciting times. Hopefully everything goes well with that. So an early congratulations with them. Childbirth is exciting, scary, crazy, beautiful, and from the dad perspective, it's just full of mind-blowing WTF moments nonstop, where you're just like, this is what humans are capable of. I cannot believe this. So hopefully all goes well with that. Exciting times. Another baby boy coming into the Splatoon community. That counts 6 that I'm aware of since PJ's been born, 6 including PJ. Interesting. News of tournaments that may be of interest to the casual listener of the Popcast. It's Slow Ink Week. You might have forgotten, but the tournament you should be playing in is not Ludi. You shouldn't be scheduling your Ludi sets for this weekend. I told you to save your bye week. Don't use your bye during the first week of Ludi. You should be using it during your second week so that you play Low Ink this upcoming weekend. We'll have a preview on Friday. We'll get back to the top 10. I have no idea who teams 1 through 10 are going to be in my top 10. Most teams that were in my top 10 the last couple of months are now Div 4, and they're gone. They've moved on to bigger and better things. So we'll still do a preview on Friday, 3 p.m. We're going to shoot for 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. My schedule at work is a little wonky in the summertime, but I feel like we got an opening at 3 p.m., so we'll do it then. Today, we are going to be discussing the Jackpot situation that took place last weekend and all the things that encompassed it. So a whole lot of heavy stuff we need to be talking about here on the podcast. I spent last week retweeting others' thoughts. I felt like it wasn't a time for me to chime in, especially on Twitter, where it was more important to kind of highlight other people's thoughts on the situation, who had a much more better perspective and had better thoughts that needed to be highlighted at the time. And instead of tweeting out my thoughts on Twitter, still, I do a show here where I talk about these things with my face, so nothing can be like misinterpreted or, well, I mean, I say that and things get misinterpreted here on the Popcast all the time. Still, we need to talk about it, so we're going to. But first, Ludi and other tournaments took place this past weekend. A ton of tournaments. So let's get that out of the way first before we get into the more important segment. So with that being said, let's recap the week. Paddling pool number 271 took place on Wednesday. It was won by Hades. Old Boys took second place, and Comp Diff rounds out your top 3. 36 teams played in this edition of Paddling Pool, and since it is summertime, that means North America is going to be showing up more in these EU tournaments, and it just so happens that North America won this Paddling Pool. Yay! SOS number 151 took place Wednesday night. It was won by High Stands. Loxier 247, basically Loxier with Chase, took second place, and a Turtle Emote team is the team that took home the bronze medal. Another 70-plus team tourney. 72 teams playing in this event. Not playing for Ludi results because Ludi divs were already out at the time. So that indicates yet again, yes, it is summertime. That means kids need something to do. And why not play in tournaments that you couldn't play because you had to do homework at that time. Hammerhead was won by No Pencil. Mako Bracket was won by Almond Nuts. And Lantern Bracket was won by Sonora. Triton Cup number 80 took place on Friday. It was won by Tartarus. Dat Stands took second place, and Pickletown took home the bronze. Tartarus was the number 1 seed. It lost to Dat Stands in the winter finals 3-2, but ultimately was able to beat them in a bracket reset in grand finals the very next set. From the Ink Up, number 56 was won by Sabotage. SBMA on screen took second place. I have no idea what that stands for. And Krill Switch is the 3 teams that round out your podium right there. 38 teams played in this Friday Skill Cap bi-weekly tournament. It has been 56 editions of From the Ink Up, and I believe this is the first time I mentioned them in the weekly recap without somebody reminding me to mention them in the weekly recap. Squid Junction number 70 took place on Saturday night. It was won by Duck Motif. Dat Carey, I'm assuming related to Dat Stance, took second place. And Ford F-150 rounds out your top 3. Squid Junction still on Battle 5, one of the few tournaments still in existence on Battlefy other than like the skill cap tournaments that are not officially on Sindao yet. I appreciate that. It's like when you were like when Netflix came out and Blockbuster was still a thing. It was still cool to go to Blockbuster for the nostalgia of it all. Squid Junction is a very nostalgic tournament because for whatever reason they're still not on Sindao, but hey, it's nice to have Blockbuster still around. Ludi recap. We like to do the top 5 matches of Ludi that I like to that I think are the top 5. Week 1, Division 3, the Grillers got a 5-4 win over Jack Squat. Division 10, totally competitive team, got a 5-4 win over the Thug Shakers. Division 2, Persistence got a 5-4 win over Love featuring Zachary. Division 1, Monsoon with a 5-4 win over Sush. And the biggest win of the week goes out to Division 7. This is Fine, getting a 5-4 win over Riptide. That is the team, not the LAN. But that was your weekly recap. Sponsored by Stormy's Hood Commentary. Last week we plugged Falco's Splatoon tourney as a way to get your tournament, your Ludi set streamed and commentated over. Stormy's Hood Commentary is another alternative. It is a much more spicy version of getting your tournament set streamed, but a lot of people like watching Stormy's Hood Commentary. I am one of them. It is a unique take on a way of, not boring way of talking about Splatoon, which we've kind of found a way to make Splatoon kind of boring to talk about from a commentary perspective. Splatoon or Stormy's Hood Commentary is definitely a change of pace and is an alternative to the Splatoon Tourney channel if you want to get it streamed. So Stormy's Hood Commentary, the official sponsor of today's segment of the weekly recap. Fair warning. Today's topic is obviously going to be a little bit heavy. We are covering topics of racism, homophobia, among other things. Things that can't really be glazed over or just kind of brushed away as are swept under the rug, in a sense. This podcast about competitive Splatoon tries to be something fun, something entertaining, something positive, uplifting. But I've covered serious topics here before because these are issues that are reflecting our community. And it would be disingenuous if I were to not add my voice to the conversation about what's been going on in the past week. I'm not always a fan of whenever somebody's like, oh, there's just too much negativity going on right now. Let's have a thread where you post a picture of your puppy. Like, those are all fine and dandy, but you can't just use that as a way to distract yourself from the conversations that need to be had and things that we need to talk about for us all to be able to grow and move forward as a, not just as a competitive Splatoon scene, but as a human society as whole. And it's been quite often that here on this show, whenever something negative happens in the community, or something that just like could be listed off as like teenager drama. Oh, this person's going to fight this person at this LAN. I've always pointed out, like, look at the people that are going to LANs, because this is what the real community is about. This is what the real competitive Splatoon scene is. I've always pointed at, look at Krill Streak, the six-pack yokes, the Wiggly Phantoms. Like, these are examples of what the Splatoon community is all about. Like, this is the representation of the Splatoon community as a whole. And I feel like even though I've covered these topics in the past, I don't think I've been doing enough as a TO and an analyst of really driving home the point that, yes, even though there is a lot of positive things in this community, and if you meet people in person, you get a whole much different perspective of what the community is actually about. You can't, you have to acknowledge our dark side. You have to acknowledge the things that are uncomfortable, because what I'm trying to tell you is the Splatoon community is not fair, because it doesn't necessarily reflect how you view it. And yes, this is going to be, it's not lost on me that before I start to covering this topic, I am another straight white male, cisgendered male, and I'm not trying to speak over anybody. I'm not trying to tell you how you should feel about these kinds of things, or what you should think about these things, or even what you should and shouldn't forgive. That's not my place to suggest any of that stuff. And I'm not. I saw this on Twitter once. I don't speak for people of color, but no, like there's, you just don't. And that's not at all what this is going to be. It is my attempt to add my voice to the conversation, and to not, it's but just because I am a straight white man doesn't mean that I can use as an excuse to not talk about it, because there needs to be conversations about this on all sides. So let's recap what happened last week. There was a tweet made out by Nitrogen, and I will read off this whole tweet. Obviously, I'll paraphrase some things as I get it pulled up here. And this was pulled out, or tweeted out, on Tuesday of last week. Quote, all jokes aside, I wish the Splatoon community gave an F about our minorities, but of course they don't, because they just let things slide when it comes down to the way we are get treated, and it's very disheartening. End quote right there. I don't know what sparked that initial tweet. If it was one particular situation in particular that forced that, or not forced it, like created the idea behind putting that tweet out, or if it was just like an accumulation of many things altogether. It was retweeted by Adapt, who followed it up with a thread of a lot of different things, of examples of things that have happened both in the past and some that seemed quite recent, like this year kind of recent, of issues that have happened before that have been swept under the rug. Some of the main things that were brought out were from Leafy and Madness of Jackpot, including multiple instances of racist statements on both Twitter and Discord VC. Screenshot of Jared using the N-word within the thread as well. Zero, not of Jackpot, using the F slur in a VC and also spamming Free Israel. Man, it's... And I'm not going to go in depth into what all of those things specific are, but I do want to at least acknowledge them here for reasons that we'll be getting into a little bit later. And not just use the generic narrative that I use here, which is, if you're watching the Popcast, you probably already know these kinds of things. Well, you might know them today, but as the years go on, you might forget. And that's why I'm trying to at least acknowledge these kinds of things. Some of the Twitter screenshots and the Discord screenshots of the more racist statements were from 4 years ago, 2020, 2021. But there's also a couple of VC recordings that were posted as well. And I don't know the exact date of that, but some of them had... like the not the Octo expansion, the white weapons that you get from Side Order, which would indicate that they are pretty recent, as far as like a lot of those statements are concerned. So yeah, you can't just kind of sweep these things away. It sparked others to release some screenshots as well. of some other people inside the community. Now, not all the screenshots posted were real. As Madness's apology doc pointed out, and I've read through everybody's apologies for things that they posted here. Madness posted or like kind of acknowledged there were several screenshots that were posted that were fake and not real. But did everybody that posted an apology did go through and point out like, yes, this actually happened. Yes, I did say this. Yes, this is real. But there's been a lot of misinformation, a lot of jackassery that's being spread about this. A lot of people that just see this as a situation to throw more fuel onto a fire that doesn't really they're just looking to create more chaos. And there was a lot of that. And that's something you always see whenever there's any kind of controversy in the Splatoon community or any community in general. The splatter color screen, whenever that comes up, there's always people that have not real opinions but still want to find ways to poke some bears and start controversies and post memes or whatever to get more likes out of it. It's beyond frustrating. But I do want to acknowledge that there are at least some things that were posted weren't true, but obviously all of the racist, the homophobic things, the pro-Israel things, those were all confirmed by the people who actually are actually been accused of saying those things. So those are things I do want to point out. I do encourage you to read everybody's apology, not from a sense of like you need to accept their apology or anything like that, just to get more context as it is to what is real and what isn't real. And some of the stuff that was like fake was just like so easy to kind of like determine. Like, yeah, like Discord doesn't even work that way. Like, why would they show 3 messages with the person's name in the same exact minute? That's not how that works. Jackpot is the focus of the attention here, the main focus of the attention, even though it wasn't just the players that were on that team that were kind of exposed last week for things that they've said in the past. In fact, to give you context, for the 4 players or the 8 players that were on the stage for the Low Tide City finals, 3 of those 8 players released some sort of apology last week. Jared from Jackpot, Zero, I guess officially of Starburst, maybe not anymore, I don't know, and Nolan of Moonlight. So like this wasn't just Jackpot, but obviously given the brand recognition that they have across the entire scope of the video game, competitive or not, this brought a lot of attention onto them. All 4 of their players, including their coach, released a statement last week. It transcended competitive Splatoon. And you know, we every now and then we have some random jackass statement that's like, man, you had to be there for it to even know what was going on. Remember the I may be a pedophile, but I'm still really good at the game. Like, we were there at the time. We remember that. But that didn't really get articles in Japan written about them. This transcended everything. This was not a competitive Splatoon story. This was an esports story. It was global. I saw Japanese articles written about it using images of Jackpot's faces on top of it. I mean, they're a public team. They won the world championship through Nintendo. Their faces were posted everywhere on those articles. Like, this is something they're never going to be able to get away from in the same kind of way where anybody else who's just a random PFP of an anime character online is going to be able to get away with. They have a banner in the game as well that is the Inklings, and it's, I mean, there's people who have that banner that don't even know who these players are or why this banner. They might just think it's just a banner that has 4 Inklings on it. It's like, oh, cool, a banner with Inklings, and not really know who those Inklings are representing or anything like that. Debatable that they were the best team. You can't deny, though, that they are the biggest brand as far as competitive Splatoon is concerned in the world. Jackpot is the biggest brand, especially today. All time, I probably that as well. But today, the brand Jackpot was bigger than any team in Japan, anything, Starburst, FT Win. Jackpot was a Splatoon global icon. Before we start tackling some other things, there's one more thing I want to bring up. Toolbox was a team that did play in low ink. I believe some of their players are on Loxier now, and well, they're Div 3, so they're obviously banned. Their captain, I believe, posted a screenshot on Twitter as well. Not like a screenshot, but basically just like a statement on Twitter. Because Toolbox was that team that had when Jackpot was originally looking for a low ink team and they were going to coach them up, and you're like, you need to change your name to Bankrupt, and we're going to coach you up and make content out of it, and we're going to help you improve. Like, that was their way to give back to the community. I praise that as something that I thought was great of Jackpot to do, of something that I thought was going to be beneficial. I thought it was I thought content they could make out of that would be great. It was overall just like a good idea. The player from Toolbox pointed out, though, that never really took place. They did change their name to Bankrupt. They were looking to get some coaching. Apparently, they sat in on a couple of scrims and nothing more. And so be it. The problem is, though, because they're branded as Bankrupt and they're connected to Jackpot, every team that plays against them is going to see them as an opportunity to beat the Jackpots, the team that's being coached by Jackpot. They received a lot of negative feedback from their teams that they've been playing with, their opponents they've been going up against. They talked about how it was a lot of pressure that was put on them. A lot of hate came their way, which sucks. But it also sucks that Jackpot just completely left them high and dry. Just like, hey, you guys inherit all of this pressure and all this hate from everybody and all this jealousy from everybody, and we're not going to help you at all deal with any of this stuff. So just good luck with that. So that kind of got posted last week as well, and it's definitely something I wanted to at least acknowledge here, because that absolutely sucks. And, you know, I have teams that I root for, and I think after that, Loxier is definitely going to be one of those teams that I root for sure. Because that's just a sucky situation to be a part of. So let's tackle some things here. So that's roughly that's a brief overview of everything that took place last week or came out last week. Let's start tackling some of these things, starting with the accountability of the racist remarks. There's no excuse for it. There's absolutely no excuse for it. And some excuses were made. Being young just so happens to be not an excuse to make racist remarks. If you are old enough to use a word that is a slur towards a set group of people, and you use that word specifically against a specific person, you're old enough to know that is wrong. You're old enough to know that is not okay. There is no set age where you get a pass for that. And yes, I know it comes down to a lot of different things. It comes down to your upbringing, the people that you hang around. You know, I would like to think that I can guide PJ in the right path of life, but there has to be a bunch of other people that play a role in that as well. I'm not going to be a helicopter parent that says what's all going on here at school, but you do have to make sure that everybody involved in your life is helping you guide down that right path. And obviously, if you hang around the wrong people or the people that are encouraging uses of words that you should not be using, it's just unfortunate, but it's not an excuse. It's not something that you can just sweep under the rug by saying I was young. A lot of those statements were 4 years ago. it's two things with that. A, there's no statute of limitations on how others should feel about racist statements that are made by people they look up to, even though it was in the past. And B, a lot of the, well, it was in the past thing kind of loses a lot of validity when there are VC recordings of you saying similar things this very same year. And that shows, it makes it even worse. That shows like over this extended period of time, this is something that's been going on. This wasn't an isolated incident at one particular point in time. It's an extended period of time of things going on. The last thing you see, and this is just something you see almost every single time, it was just a joke that was among friends. If statements, racist, homophobic statements, are just brushed off as just jokes, as things that are just seen as, well, within the group of people I hang out with, we find this funny, so that's okay for us to say these kinds of things. If they're just brushed off as jokes, racism's never going to go away. Homophobia is never going to go away. Those things are always going to exist as long as they are something that can be joked about in the same way that they've been joked about for decades upon decades at this point. So in short, there's always some explanation, but there's never really a valid excuse because there is none. And I get internet cultured. I get not every corner of the world can be modded. And I know we get a lot of slack from people because the IPL server doesn't let you say ass or hell, or maybe it lets you say hell, but it's auto modded, and we're constantly putting, there was one point where some bots got a hold of the IPL, and it's no secret there's always some sort of scammer bot that's always getting in there. We're banning a bot every other day, pinged everyone, and then there's just like a bunch of people that just, let's just use this as an opportunity. I got pinged as everyone. Let's just post a bunch of silly stuff. And a lot of the silly stuff I went back and delete. One person in particular, I was like, no, you need to be timed out for a day because this is not funny and it's not silly. It's inappropriate. You shouldn't be allowed to do this here. But not every server is the IPL server, and there's plenty of places to where inappropriate memes, maybe not racist things, but just toxic and inappropriate and graphic things can be posted at whim, and maybe even in some like tournament chats you guys can post those kinds of things. I understand that. I understand it's hard to go against friends, especially when you struggle to make friends sometimes, especially in person. And it seems like middle school and high school, you're in such a way where you want to find just anybody that you can cling on to and you can be with to help you get through this awkward time in your life. And it can be hard to point out when this person is crossing the line and they're doing something wrong and they're saying something they shouldn't be saying. I understand all of that. However, none of that is a get out of jail free card. All of those things cannot prevent consequences from the actions that people use in the community. Jackpot disbanded. It's not really a surprise. The players stated they're leaving comp forever. That's good for them. I think that is the right call. No, I don't think that is the right call that they should go with. It's you need to leave the scene after what's going on with that. But that's not enough. Self-bans should not stop orgs from issuing their own bans on top of that. It should not stop Splat Safety from doing an investigation. And I know people are always pointing at Splat Safety as for a variety of different issues. I always want to point out, orgs have been banning people long before Splat Safety existed, during the existence of Splat Safety, and long after Splat Safety is finally done with all the bull crap and they disband. The orgs decide who play in their tournaments. The Splat Safety does investigations. They do a lot more in-depth stuff. They do a lot more fact-checking. They're a lot more fair to everybody in the process. But orgs are always the ones who decide if they want to enforce bans or not. This is a situation to where all these players need to be banned indefinitely, if not permanently, from the competitive Splatoon scene. It's not about making an example out of them. It's about holding our whole community accountable for this. If we leave the door open for a return, why would any person of color trust the scene? And as many people have stated on Twitter last week, they never trust the scene to begin with. So why, if we allow people to come back, if we allow people to just, well, it's been a certain amount of time, you can come right back in, why should we be surprised that people don't trust the competitive Splatoon community? Remember, you need to remember this, not now, because I'm pretty sure if you asked any member of Jackpot right now, if they wanted to play the game today, they'd probably say no. Nope, I'm done, I'm leaving, I'm walking away. Remember that 2 years from now. The first proving ground that took place in 2020 had DJ ulting in it, a player who's perma-banned by Splat Safety and is upheld by every organization. In that same year, Bliss made a return to competitive Splatoon. Another player, I believe the first player ever banned permanently by Splat Safety. Bliss was playing on Destiny Bond in Nintendo's tournaments, which was totally legal because Nintendo doesn't know/care what Splat Safety is. By the way, it's worth noting that Destiny Bond also included Zero and Jared, and Zero tweeted out that Bliss should get a second chance. And people who didn't remember who Bliss was or wasn't a part of the community when Bliss wasn't here would see that and be like, oh yeah, 2 years, that's a long enough time. I'm sure whatever they did is fine, and they've grown as a person, which is great. I'm not challenging the fact that people can't grow and change over the course of 2 years or any kind of set amount of time. That's how human beings work. Everybody should be working to improve themselves in many ways, and I am very hopeful that the players who said they're stepping away from the scene forever are going to find ways to grow as human beings. They got a long life ahead of them, and there's so many wonderful things on this planet that they can have access to, that they can accomplish, so many dreams they can go forward, so many different ways that they can enjoy this planet and spread joy to other people. I am not challenging that narrative at all. But 2 years from now, because of skill level, mind you, because of skill level, someone will need a +1. And then they'll try to make the statement, oh, this person changed. We cannot allow that to happen. And that's why I went back and kind of explained what happened in this one instead of just like, oh, well, you know because you're watching this. No, 2 years from now, somebody is going to be a part of the scene, and they're not going to know what took place last week. They are not going to remember who any of these players are, and they're going to see somebody talk about, oh, well, they're changed and grow, and you're going to be like, oh, okay, oh, I trust that person who said that they changed and grown, so I'm going to accept them back into the community. Yeah, this is great. Another really strong player. Cool, that's awesome. We cannot allow that to happen. And I know that is going to happen because it has happened before. It's not that people can't change and grow. And I'm hopeful that they will. The problem is the pain they've caused doesn't just go away. The pain doesn't just disappear. The hurt, the damage, the victims, they don't have a time limit for how long they get to be upset about this. You can't just go and say, okay, we're banning you from 2 years, and at the end of this 2 years, if you complete these kinds of things, we'll let you back into the community. Okay, well, in 2 years, is the victim going to get over it? Is 2 years, is everybody going to forgive them for what they did? Like, how do you determine that's what the thing is? And we've done that a lot. And it's so frustrating because specifically when like certain players are brought back in, it's always the victims that are saying like, this is why I'm gone. Like, this is why I left and why I'm not coming back, because this player's being celebrated yet again. I'm still hurt by it, but everybody else has gotten over it, and they're being brought back because they can help me win a tournament. because that's always the case. It always comes down to skill level to where they can get a pass with these kinds of things or not. So we cannot allow that to happen because the pain does not have a time limit to it. If you want to get better and improve, ask yourself this. Are you doing it for you? Are you doing it so that you can be a better person? Or is it so you can play a video game again? Part of that maturation process is understanding that you've caused too much pain in a community to come back. And there's still many things you can accomplish in other parts of the world. But you can't just hope that this scene is going to forgive and forget, because we cannot allow that to happen. We have stopped those kinds of things from happening before. It needs to continue to be the case here. And again, that's not a statement against the people involved and say they can't improve and grow, but that it's not fair to the people that have been impacted by the things that they've said, the actions that they've done. It's not at all fair to them to put a time limit on how long they get to be upset or to be hurt by these things. It's not at all fair to them. And if you are someone who's leaving the scene or banned from the scene, you have to accept that. That is something as part of your maturation process that you have to accept. Lastly, I want to talk about what I've been learning from this. About the topic of people of color, LGBT, other minorities. How we always pride ourselves on being a welcoming community for all, yet so many come forward and constantly say otherwise. In my hometown, and I think however you define diversity, my hometown is one of the most diverse cities in the state of Kentucky, which, it's Kentucky, take it with a grain of salt. But I'm not just talking about black and white. There was a lot of people from Europe. It was I don't know what the official term was for it, but we were like a city for refugees to come into. Like, it was a designated city, refugees from Bosnia and other parts of the world that was experiencing a war. Like, a lot of those families moved in and grew up and had their kids and started families in the city that I was in. So we had a lot of different people from all kinds of different backgrounds in my city. On the edge of town, like, I think it's technically outside the city limits, but it's still within the county. On the edge of town is this junkyard that had a crane that was just kind of stationed right in front of it, like right next to the road so that you could see it. And hanging from the crane was a black VW Beetle. And it just hung there. Like, the crane never moved and it never lowered the black car that was on it. It just kept it up there hanging for decades. I remember seeing this in the mid-2000s. This isn't some like 1950, 60 situation. This was the mid-2000s where I first saw this, and I think it's been around longer than that. And it doesn't take a whole lot of thought to think about what the symbolism is that junkyard is trying to put on with that. That 100% could not be misinterpreted any other way. I Googled Earth it today just to see for myself, and as of June 2023, that's what Google Earth had, that crane is still hanging that black VW Beetle to this very day. In fact, they have it right in front. Like, if you were to go to that junkyard, you have to drive past it. And if you're just driving past it, like, you have to see it. Like, there's no way you can't notice it. And there's no way you can't interpret it from anything other than what it is. Now, I guarantee you, if that was a white pickup truck, it would not have been hanging for decades upon decades like it has been. But it still stands to this day. Imagine having to drive past that and see that every day on your way to work if you are a person of color. That is just one example of my hometown of blatant racism in America. I bet you every person in this chat has their version if not multiple versions of blatant racism being displayed within your hometown. Maybe not even America. I bet across the whole world somebody has an example of something like that going on. It doesn't matter if it is the South like I grew up in, or California, or certainly Boston, any corner of the world. Somebody has an example of something like that where they experience blatant racism being put out on display on a daily basis. For the Splatoon community, that might be the one place where people can go to escape from the reality of the world and find a wholesome place where everything is built around this stupid video game and uplifting each other within this stupid kind of video game that we have. However, if that is taken away from you, well, let's put it into perspective a little bit, shall we? Let's make some of you a little bit uncomfortable here. If you are somebody who can't stand seeing things that are promoting Black Lives Matter, gay rights, free Palestine, pronouns in your bio, or women commentating tournaments, I have some unfortunate good news for you. All you have to do is go outside. You are unfortunate enough to live in a place where I guarantee you your local politicians, police department, church leaders, HOA, business owners, school board, neighborhood watch, country clubs, in my particular instance, apparently my local junkyard, all are working towards making sure that the status quo of keeping you at the top of the societal food chain stays unchanged in your favor. Now, imagine if you do not have that benefit of having a crazy world built around benefiting you, and the one place that you go to get an escape from all of this is taken away from you as well, because you see people tweeting out and typing out on Discord jokes that are targeted towards you. And it's just brushed off as jokes. It was 4 years ago. We were young. I can't even begin to imagine how exhausting that must be. And that is why it's unacceptable for these things to take place. Of course, it's unacceptable in general, but why the competitive Splatoon community needs to be the sanctuary that we claim to be. Because quite honestly, as much as I've sitting here raising pom-poms talking about how awesome a lot of you are, because there are so many of you that are awesome and wonderful and are the reason that people like me want to continue to stick around and be a part of this community, there are so many things that are just flat out ugly in this scene, and we can't turn a blind eye to it anymore. So there you go. That's all I really have to say on the situation. And I don't think there's any highlighted messages here, so I'm not going to go back and kind of revisit any of that stuff. I would recommend you pay attention to Ken Knows YouTube. He's released one video on the topic and had another video today. I didn't even get through that before this went live. Squid School has reached out about this as well. I would highly recommend listening to anybody who is a person of color who has to deal with this on a daily basis. Hear the stories that people have to say. It just sucks, man. It just sucks. But just because it sucks doesn't mean we can just not talk about it. Doesn't mean we can't brush it off. Or we can brush it off. That being said, we're going to wrap this up here. There will be another Popcast on Friday. We will preview Low Ink. Oh, also, next Saturday is the a tournament benefiting. I need to reach out to them. Actually, I got something I want to kind of propose to them. Next Saturday is that. Who is online that we're going to raid? Rose of Battle. That seems like a safe one. If you'd like to be a part of the Popcast in any way, feel free to reach out at my socials: Twitter, Mr. underscore Popgun, Discord Popgun, hashtag 5, or just Popgun, YouTube at 25 Popgun, Twitch at Popgun25, Anchor.fm /Popgun. One last thing I will say. If there's anything I said here and it's like oh, you disagree with me, like, fine. Like, feel free to reach out and talk to me. But if you are somebody who's just like, I am anti this and I am anti anything that the Splatoon community stands for, if you don't have an issue with the things that have been said by the members of Jackpot or Zero last week, like, if you're just a flat out horrible human being and you don't see an issue with any of this stuff, I don't agree with the mindset of, well, just block me, unfollow me, unsubscribe to me. I don't want you. No, no, no. Talk to me. Genuinely, come talk to me. I'm not afraid of you. I want to have a conversation with you because if I just push you away, then you're just going to find some other assholes that have the same exact ideologies as you, and you'll just create this echo chamber, and then that's when things get even worse. So come talk to me. Let me tell you that you are just let me try to logically explain why you are so wrong in the way that you go about things. I see that a lot with a different thing, so I just wanted to point that out. Be safe. Have a good day. Sign up for Low Ink if you're eligible. If you're Div 4 and you used to play in Low Ink, don't sign up. Like, you're on to other better things. Play your looty sets. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you for listening.